I mentioned, we want to put a rabbet into this board so that this piece will slide in to that rabbet. And these are scraps, by the way. Always save your scraps, because your scraps are the exact dimension of the stock that you're working with, so it pays to hang on to them for a while so you can use them. And what we want to do is find a spot right there and put a knife mark right there. I don't use a pencil here because you want to be a little more accurate than a pencil. So I want to put a nice strong knife mark right there. And there's two things I want to do. So that's the amount into the board that I have to go to evacuate my rabbet. And then I want to leave my rabbet about a 1/16 inch here. Strong 1/16. So what I'm doing is I want to take out this and I want to take out this so that this piece goes right in there. Okay, what I want to do is bring this stock up to the tip of the blade until it's just going to cut that knife mark. I am splitting that knife mark right there. Hopefully you can see that pretty good. All right, I then want to reference that spot by adjusting my fence, which is going to hit the camera, by adjusting my fence right up to it. Okay, and I've got that set now, and hopefully you can see what I just did. This clamp is blocking the view. But I've set this stop here so that every time I slide this piece up to that stop, I'm hitting that knife mark. And I know that the depth of my rabbet is going to be exact. So I'm going to lock down my fence to hold that spot. And if you can't see it, this stop is butted against the fence. I'm going to slide it back out of the way a little bit, and I'm going to clamp it in place. Okay. So the idea is, let me move some of this stuff out of the way. Every time I bring a piece of stock up to there and bring it to the fence, bring it to the blade, I am going to cut that line. Alright, I'm going to do it every time. Now the second thing I have to do is set for the depth of cut. And right now, if I ran that through, I'd cut the whole end off the board because my table saw's blade is way too high. Alright, so let's see if I can show you that one and get you a better angle. So what I'm looking for here now is to set my table saw blade so that I leave that 1/16 of an inch right there. Okay, that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So I have a mark on my insert that tells me where the arbor is under that, so I know this is the highest possible point on the blade. That's the highest point this blade will cut because I'm right over the arbor there. And I'm going to take that and adjust that, and so it leaves me about a 1/16. I'm just eyeballing, it doesn't really matter. I just want a relatively small amount of wood left because I want to leave some meat in there to nail to. I only have 1/2 inch stock, so if I make this rabbet too shallow, it's going to be hard to get a nail in there without splitting everything out. So I want to leave I guess that's a strong 1/16. Let's take a look. I'm over here. Yeah, I'm closer to 1/8. I could probably raise that blade a little bit. Again, I'm reaching over, trying to stay at the camera angle. I would normally do this from a different angle. Oh, let's go with that. I chickened out. Let's go with that. Okay, so that's going to be our rabbet. Now, remind you, I'm working on a piece of scrap. So I'm going to test this cut on this piece of scrap now. I've got my depth set here. I've got my depth set here. And if I make that cut and then nibble it over, I should evacuate the rabbet. We'll test it on another piece of stock, and we'll see how we did. Dang, gotta move the camera again, otherwise you guys will vibrate when I turn this on. Hold with me. Okay, let's see how our test cut comes out on our test piece. I'm going to take a chisel, I missed a little piece there, and just clear out what I didn't get. And let's see how we did. That's really good. Back at the bench, we've got that test rabbet set up, and as you can see, we got a very good rabbet there. Bring it together like so, and when we glue and nail that, it'll be nice and tight. So we're going to take that, and we're now going to use that setup that we just made to rabbet the front and back of our boxes like that. So the front and back of our boxes will get that rabbet cut into it. So let me take this apart, bring it over to the table saw, we'll make those cuts. All right, let's put the rabbets in the front and the back of the box. I'm comfortable with my setup, and I'm ready to go. Off camera, I used the same setup on the table saw to cut the rabbets for the lid. So we got the top sections fitted as well. And here's what they look like. If I take this lid off now, it's not glued up. I'm going to try. I better not try to do it in one piece. Let's get these guys apart. You can see how the box is shaping up on the corners with the rabbets, and we're going to be able to glue and nail that, and we're going to get a box. But before we do that, this box is going to need a bottom. So what we have to do is we have to plow a groove down here someplace, running this way, to accept a plywood bottom. And I'm also going to have to plow a groove somewhere around here, all the way around the perimeter, to put in a support for the tool tray that's going to sit in the top. So that's going to take some calculations, and we'll do a setup for that, and we'll cut in those grooves for the tool tray and the groove for the bottom plywood bottom. But before I do that, I think I'm going to get out the sander, and I think I'm going to clean up all the old pencil marks, get rid of them, so I don't confuse them with the new pencil marks I need to create to locate my my slots. So give me a few minutes, and we'll get this all cleaned up. back at the bench, and I've cleaned up the pine, got all those old markings off it so that we can put some references on now. I've got a 1/4 inch sheet of plywood here, and we're going to make a groove in the bottom of the box so that we can lay that plywood in. I've got to cut it to size yet. But what I want to do now is just make reference marks. These are not the actual cut lines by any means, just reference marks as to where those grooves need to go so that I don't lose track on the saw. And they go on the inside. I can tell by the Rabbet what the inside and the outside of the front and back are. The sides, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so this is the reference point for those grooves, but we're also going to have a ledge for the tray that we need to get in there, and let's just, for argument's sake, say that's about, I don't know, 2 inches down for now. We'll set that up a little later, but let's for now just put the reference mark in place at approximately 2 inches. Okay, so now I can be comfortable at the table saw when I start making these grooves as to where they belong. So using a test board, a scrap, I set up my table saw so that I'll get a groove in the bottom of this board that's 3/16 from the bottom of the box and a 1/4 inch deep. And I'm going to run this test board first, so I have a reference. Then I'm going to run all my my pieces. Okay, so my pieces are cut, but obviously that is not going to fit in that 1/8 inch slot. I'm going to have to widen this groove. So I'll take my test board and I'll move the fence over so I get another 1/8 of an inch, and I'll make a short test cut. I think you can see there now that the plywood fits nicely into that groove. Show you that way. Okay, so now we'll run all the rest of the boards, and we know we have a groove size to fit the plywood bottom. With the same 1/4 inch depth of cut, I've now moved my fence 2 1/4 inches from the blade, and that's where I'm going to set the groove for the lid stay, or the lid support. So now we have our stock with the 1/4 inch groove for the bottom and a 1/8 inch groove to hold a stay that will accommodate the lid support. So we're going to need some stock that is 1/8 inch thick to put in that groove, and we'll build that up a little bit later. All right, let's go on and see what this thing's going to look like so we can fit the bottom. With those grooves let into the box now, I've got it clamped back up temporarily, nice and square, and you can see that the grooves are all nicely aligned around the box. So the next thing to do is take some measurements and cut a plywood bottom. We got our 18 in that direction, and we got our 8 in that direction. Great. So now we got to subtract from the outside dimension because of the groove, or add the groove to the inside dimension, whichever way you want to look at it, and figure out how big that plywood's got to be. I'm going to do that now, and then we'll take this apart and fit it up again with the bottom in it. I cut the plywood panel. Let's see how we did here. Try to get you guys a decent angle. Where are we? Put the good side up. Get that one in. Get that one in. Get that one in. And let's see how this top goes on. Bingo. Make sure these all come tight. Good. We got a bottom for a box. All right. I'm about ready to start putting the main part of the box together, the the bottom portion. And before I did that, I thought I'd go through a couple of things about setup. Remember, this video is kind of about the details, and I'm a pretty anal guy in some of these respects. So let me zoom in a little bit, and I'll try to get a shot of what we're trying to do here. Let's see how that looks. I think that should get you in pretty good. So we're going to nail this box together. So we're going, and make sure you can see the rabbet here. We're going through here with the nail. So it's going through the side and then into the meat of the front of the box here. So what we want to do before we do that is drill some pilot holes for these nails. If we put this finish nail in that hole, it's going to split, right? So we want to get a pilot hole, and one way to do it is to take one of these little guides, find out the diameter of your nail, and then go with a smaller drill bit. So I'm set up for a 1/16 inch drill bit here on my drill, and that will create the proper pilot hole to set this nail. And one other thing I like to do is obviously, when you drill the pilot hole, you lose some bite on the nail, right? Because you've evacuated a lot of the material. So I like to set the drill. See if I can hold this in place on the camera. Get you a better angle here. I like to set the drill so that the last ½ inch of the nail is actually not piloted. So now, when I drill that pilot hole, it's gonna get the majority of the nail started. But as we come into the material, this last ½ inch or so is not going to be piloted. And the idea is that by the time the nail gets that far through this piece, it will resist splitting for that last ½ inch or so I think. No, it will. It'll be fine. And then that ensures that we got a little more bite, because we are going to depend on this mechanical fastener for a lot of the holding power, since we're gluing long grain to end grain. here, which isn't the best glue situation, as I've said in the past. So another thing that I like to do, and again, a lot of this is just me being the way I am, is I like to space my nails so that they have at least a reasonably attractive pattern. And you can see where I've laid that out on the box here. I've got a mark that shows me the width of the board I'm going into, so I can really get a good idea where center is, right? And then I got 1, 2, 3, 4 nails evenly spaced. And that'll just make a nice pattern. And I want to repeat that pattern on the other 4 sections of the box. So what I like to do is make a little story stick here. Trying to work so you can see on the camera. And just mark those nail locations. So as I go around the box, I make the same pattern. So when I do that over here, I've got the same spacing pattern on the boxes that way. So before we can nail, we've got to glue. So what I'm going to do now that I have that marked out is take this box apart. It's just dry assembled right now. Put some glue on and get to nailing. So let me move some stuff around here and I'll set you up for that part. Now because we have a plywood panel, we can get some glue in there and actually glue the panel into the box, and that will give us some more strength. If this was a solid wood bottom, we wouldn't do that. We'd let it float loose for expansion and contraction, and we'd also make sure it was just a little bit short in the openings this way, so that it didn't blow out the box. All right, so we got a little glue in those grooves. Start putting this back together. And get the front on. Let's just hold it together temporarily with a clamp. Flip it over and get one on the other side. Aligned. I still have to put some glue on this top, but I want to get it in position first. I'm going to move that to my lower bench. Okay. So now I'll move this clamp out, take this side off, and we'll get some glue in here. Now I like to glue and clamp before I drill the pilot holes for the nails. This way, I don't shift a little bit, and I'm just getting some glue in here. I'll use a brush to spread it evenly. Get it up on this thin side of the rabbet. Not too much glue here. Take some off. I'm going to get some squeeze out, but you don't want to have too much if you can help it on the board. Okay, so let's get that in place. Put this side panel back on. Okay, register. Put this clamp back on. Okay, and I think you guys can still see, you're in pretty good view. So now what I want to do is drill on my mark. And get a nail in here. I don't know if you could hear that sound change as I got down to that last half of the nail. I'm going to do this again on this end. Remember, this nail is piloted until the last half goes in, and you might be able to hear the sound change. Might as well get all four while I'm here. Flip it around. Actually, before I put the next set of nails in, I'm going to start thinking about square, while this box is still somewhat flexible. I'm going to take this square, try to do it without blocking your view. Pardon my clumsiness, I'm reaching over to not block the camera view. Lightly clamp that there. Make sure I'm square. I gotta rack a little bit that way. Bring this guy over same way. And I just make sure that I'm staying square as I do this. I'm going to take my story stick and my pencil, and I'm going to mark my nail positions on this board. Again, a little overly detail oriented for some maybe, but that's just the way I am. Alright. I'm tighter in the middle than I am on the ends on this one, so let me get in here. And I can hand hold the other two. You don't want to try to finish them off all the way and dent your box. This is pine, and it'll definitely leave a mark. I don't need this clamp anymore. So I just want to press in here nice and tight. This just wants to bow in. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to let the chuck get down too far and dent your wood, because that will happen. So I'm going to stop just before I get there, like so. I'll drive these last two nails. Again, we don't want to set them in all the way. We'll go around with a nail set when everything's nailed up, and we'll finish them off nicely. Okay, I'm going to flip the box over and repeat that process. I think you get the picture. I'll bring you back when I got it nailed up. Okay, and I got her glued up. Didn't finish setting the nails yet. I'll do that when everything's dry, so I don't have to bang on it anymore. I've got squares for alignment right there, just to make sure everything stays nice and square while that glue dries. And we'll be good to go. And just I went in and got my finishing nails out, and I just want to show you how these glued and nailed joints, this is obviously very similar to what we're doing here. It's a Rabbet with glue and nails, and this box has got to be 10 years old, and I've got several of them up here in the cabinet. Along with some other things, and I've had this for 10 years minimum. I start to forget, and they fit quite nice, and they hold together very well. You know, this is a good way to attach more utilitarian type of boxes and things together. Again, we could cut dovetails, do finger joints, but you know what? This job doesn't call for it. All right, I'm next going to lay in a little ledge here using that 1/8 inch groove that we milled in before we assembled the box. So what I'm going to need is some 1/8 inch stock to slide in there. That's about 1/4 inch deep. We want it to come out maybe 1/4 inch for the shelf. So I think I need something that's 1/8 by 1/2, and I'll show you how I mill that on the table saw. Let me get you set up. So here's that scrap board that I used to set the grooves, set the table saw to cut the grooves on the inside of the boxes for both the 1/4 inch plywood, and then here's the extended single cut right here. So that particular cut is 1/8, and that's I'm using a 1/8 inch, full size table saw blade. So I knew that, but I just want to show you we got a 1 inch blade. So what we want to do is we want to cut a piece of stock that's 1/8 inch thick that will lay in this groove, and then in the box that will provide the shelf. That groove's down here in the box, but you get the idea. That will create the shelf onto which the tool tray will lay. It's not going to stick out this far, and I'm just giving you an example. So I think maybe if that piece was around 1/2 inch, it would protrude the right amount to support the tray. It might even be too wide, but let's make it 1/2 inch because coincidentally I have that spare 1/2 inch stock that I cut out when we planed everything down to 1/2 inch. So if I can get that 1/2 inch stock to be 1/8 of an inch in this direction and rip off a piece, I've got something to slide in there. So why don't we try doing that, and I'll show you my technique for ripping thin stock like that. The first thing you need to do is lower the blade until it is just above the stock you want to rip. I can feel the tooth sticking out. There it is. Okay, so that's the depth of my blade. I now have to move my blade over so that it is 1/8 of an inch from the fence. We're going to cut the 1/8 of an inch against the fence, contrary to popular thought. Now let's see where I am right there. Checking the bevel on my teeth. That's like a thou shy of 1/8. So why don't we start there? That's probably going to be it. But to do this safely, we have to have the right kind of push stick to run through here. And I'm going to actually move the camera, speaking about safety, because you're a little bit in my way, guys, and I want to be able to make the cut properly. I think you'll be able to see me from there. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a nice jointed edge of this board against the fence. We're going to run it through, and we're going to get a little 1/8 inch sliver come out that end. Again, I'm going to use a long, safe push stick. One will do. Okay, so let's make that cut. That blade stop spinning. All right, and if that's going to work, we'll find out. That's a little loose. That's just a little too loose for my liking. So we're going to take this blade back, and I'm looking at my gauge. Oh, we're going to take this blade back a good 1/64 of an inch, and we'll make another pass. This is called sneaking up on it, guys. Something tells me I've gone too big. Oh, I am just a tad too big. Now this had better work. There we go. All right, we're in. We're snug, but we're not too tight because remember, we're gonna have to work this into the box that's already assembled, so you don't want to be pulling around. It's snug enough that I can almost lift the board. So it's snug, but not so snug that it's hard to get in and out. So this is our setting, and we'll toss these scraps, and we'll rip enough to to do the box. Well, I used that table saw setting for my 1/8 inch tray stops, and made up some stock. I got some extra there, no big deal. I've actually laid the first piece in here, and it's a real good fit. It's a little snug on this end, but that's okay. It's nice and sturdy. And what I want to do now is proceed around the interior there, and we'll do the rest of those grooves. Let me show you what I'm doing here. So I'm taking no measurements. I'm using the box itself. That one's got a knot in it. Let's use one that doesn't. I'm using the box itself, and boy, that is the perfect length already. Now I'm going to take something a little bit longer. I'll show you why. So we'll take this one, and you might think I want to mark it here, but I don't. I don't want to mark it right on the line. I want to mark it a little long, and then I'll be able to bend it in there and get a little more support. So let me show you how I'm going to cut that. Nothing fancy here. Alright, we're going to use our bench hook and a handsaw. It's only going to take a half a second. Register that mark. Now I'll try to get you back here. I'll try to work around the camera. I'm trying to get you a higher view so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm a little long, so what I want to do is bend this a little bit, get it into the two end grooves, like so. Now I'm going to slide it into this groove here. So what I've accomplished by leaving a little long, and see if I can show you that. By leaving a little bit long, it's actually extending into that side groove, and it's giving good support. It's got something to register going down. Not that this tray is going to take a ton of weight or a ton of abuse, just got a couple of light tools in it, but you know, you might as well do it right. So that's how I'm going to fit that. Once I dry fit all four, I'll put a little glue on them, put them back in the slots, and that portion will be good to go. We'll get to building a tool tray. So I'm going to finish that up off camera. You get the idea, and I'll bring you back when we start working on that tool tray. I want to show you how I'm fitting these side pieces. Might be interesting. Hope you can see this okay. But what I do is I took a piece and I cut it long. Again, no measuring. I cut it long. I'm going to lay it flush on this end. I'm going to mark it down here so it comes into this piece nicely. So I'll mark that right there. Now I'm going to take that to my bench hook here, and we'll cut that to length. And that's just a little too long. So in order to sneak up on it, I'm going to use just a smooth plane, and I'm going to take it on this bench hook, and you could probably see this better from the other side. So I'll move you, because I'm like that. I want you guys to have a good view. Try not to get my fat hands in the way. Let me take this plane. I should be standing where you are when I do this, but I'm not. And I'll take it over here. I'll see if that'll go in now. No, that's perfect. Look at that. So I got a nice tight fit. This technique comes in handy whenever you're fitting something, be it for a silly little box like this, or for a piece of furniture, galley, something like that. And we've got our rim all the way around now. That'll take our tool tray. So let me glue that in, and I'll come back and we'll talk about how we want to make this tool tray.